And we're live, everybody. Welcome back to Crypto for You. I have a lot of things to talk about because there's a strong bullish sentiment going around. Bitcoin looks very, very strong. Let me just pull up the weekly chart and show you how much Bitcoin has pumped. Look at this. Bitcoin's pumping like crazy. There's a strong bullish sentiment that's not letting Bitcoin dump. And many people believe that Bitcoin's going to reach 40K very, very soon, and it is possible. And it's just around the corner. That's exactly what people are saying. But the problem is, on the other side of the market, there's something else. There's the fact that a lot of bears believe we are about to have a price correction. With a lot of bears, there's a strong belief by the bears that we'll get a retracement very, very soon. The question was, which analogy, which belief is correct? What if I tell you that both could be correct? And that's exactly what I want to talk about in this live stream because I want to talk about the fact that we could be seeing a rise to 40K, but we could also be seeing a fall down very, very soon. And this is because the Bulls versus the Bears, they're fighting a lot right now. Without further ado, let's just start talking about the Bitcoin news because this is very, very important. Starting off with the fact that the ETF could be approved very, very soon because Bloomberg analysis reveals conservative deadline for Bitcoin ETF approval. James, an ETF research analysis from Bloomberg, basically predicted that the SEC may potentially be ready with a decision on the spot Bitcoin ETF as soon as November 8th until November 21st for various filings. Now, the biggest catalyst that people are saying that the reason that Bitcoin could pump to 40 grand to 50 grand very, very soon is because of two things. Number one, it's the ETF. People believe that this ETF could cause Bitcoin to rise like hell. And I agree because we did have some rumor that happened that caused Bitcoin to pump like crazy. Why do you think Bitcoin went from 27,000 to $35,000 in just 2 weeks? That's just insane price moves right there. And that's only because we have some ETF news. People bought the rumor. We had the news that the BlackRock ETF was listed on the DTCC, which does not even mean that the ETF will get accepted soon. All that this means is that now it has the potential to get seeded, and now is a step closer, yes, but it does not mean that the ETF approval is just around the corner because we could have 2, 3 years until the ETF gets approved, even though these ETFs are now listed on the DTCE. But doesn't matter, we had this news right over here. And because we had the ETFs get accepted on the DTCC, as soon as this happened, we had an increase in the price. We had 30% rise. And that's why a lot of people are very, very bullish on Bitcoin. And I stand by this because we do have a very strong bullish catalyst. And if the ETFs do get accepted, this is going to be insane. Bitcoin's going to pump like crazy, and the Bitcoin bulls will be correct. And all that matters is that for the ETF to get accepted. It's a very big thing. This ETF will open up a very big space. It will allow more investors to come in. There's going to be a scarcity of Bitcoin and an increase in demand, which is going to drive the price higher and higher, which means that if the ETF gets accepted, which people are saying the deadline is, I mean, the people believe that it's going to get accepted between November 8th and 21st, well, then we're about to pump. There is a deadline for the ETF to get accepted, which is January 10th, 2024. That's the deadline. That's the final deadline for the SEC to decide. And people are saying that there's a 99% probability for the ETFs to get accepted. That means that it's going to get accepted by January 10th, 2024. And that's the deadline when people believe that Bitcoin's going to pump like crazy. And that's not all, because there's another bullish catalyst that people are saying that's going to cause Bitcoin to pump like crazy. And that is the fact that we are closer and closer. We're getting closer and closer to the Bitcoin halving. And this is a very big cycle that I've been talking about for a while. I've been talking about this Bitcoin halving for a long time, and the fact that every 4 years we do the same exact thing, generally speaking. Of course, Bitcoin does not repeat, but it does rhyme, so it usually moves around the same. Price percentages are different, but look at these trends. In the first year of this 4 year cycle that's indicated by these vertical lines, we can see a pump in the first year, a crash in the second year, and then this third year of high volatility. People call this the high risk area, and a lot of people all they do is just sit around and just hold during this period. And I'm all for it. I recommend people sitting out and holding in these areas because people get confused. People get confused very, very easily. It starts to rise. Bitcoin starts to rise like crazy. People believe that we're about to rise to the all time high. Right over here, Bitcoin rose to $13,000, which was, let's see how long this was. It was 203 days. That was already more than half of a year we of just pumping. We pumped 338%. This caused people to believe that we are about to start another bull market. It was just after a cool off, just after an 80% dump from 20K, but people already believe that Bitcoin is about to pump. If you had this halving cycle, you would know that a lot of volatility was about to happen, and people after reaching 30K, 13K, a lot of people bought in and just got liquidated because this dump from 13K down to, well, technically $4,000 was a very big down. It was a 70% crash. And even though this last dump right over here, this last crash was a black swan event, this was a pandemic, you could not predict this. It did cause a lot of people to get liquidated. And we did come back up, but we had a very big volatile year until the halving happened. As soon as the halving happened, something changed, something clicked, and we started seeing the same exact thing. Rise in the first year, dump in the second year. And this is why we have both bulls and bears saying that the halving can help their side. For example, the bulls, they're saying that this is the beginning of a bull market because we're super close to the halving. We're about, let's see, how far away are we? We are 22 weeks away from the Bitcoin halving. Here's the countdown. We are 168 days away from the Bitcoin halving. This is insane. We're getting closer and closer. And of course, the Bitcoin halving is a very big thing. For those who don't know what the Bitcoin halving is, all it is just cutting the amount of Bitcoin that gets released every 10 minutes in half. Right now, 6.25 Bitcoin get released every 10 minutes from the miners. But in April of 2024, it will get cut in half to 3.125. Once that happens, basically what's going to happen is the supply is not going to increase that fast. Inflation is going to be much slower. And that means that Bitcoin will technically be much, much scarcer, which means that the price should technically come up, but it has not been priced yet. And this is why a lot of bulls are believing that we could pump right now. Once people understand how much the Bitcoin having effects, then the pump starts to happen, which is why a lot of Bitcoin bulls believe that we could pump very, very soon to 40K to $50,000 because they're very big, significant resistance lines that people are saying that we could rise up to. At the same time, the bears are using the same exact thing, the Bitcoin having, to prove that we should dump in the short term. Yes, in the long term, we are approaching the Bitcoin halving. So once the Bitcoin halving happens, we should be seeing a pump. But until then, we are in a very high risk area, which means that we can do whatever we want. We could rise up to 40K, we could fall down to $20,000. And technically, this is correct. You cannot really predict using technical analysis at this time where Bitcoin's going to go in the long term. In the short term, yes, you could probably get some small bullish pennants, some small indicators showing where Bitcoin's going to go. But in the long term, try telling me where this was going to happen. I personally believe that this was going to be a triple top. I mean, a three drives reversal that was going to take us down to $20,000. And it kind of made sense. I was saying that we could have a reversal down to around $21,000 because of the Fibonacci retracement. And I was saying that this five wave Elliott wave could take us there easily. This ABC correction wave could be the beginning. And technically, it all made sense. We would fall down to $21,000 before rising back up and it reaching $30,000 again in the beginning of the halving and then starting a bull run. But no, we had this insane pump to $35,000 where we are right now. Why? Well, because of the bullish catalyst, because of the Bitcoin news. And this is why it all comes down to what the news in real life for Bitcoin says. If the ETF gets approved in November 8th to 21st, we are about to see something insane. Imagine how much Bitcoin will pump if the rumor that the ETF got accepted to a DTCC, not even like an ETF accepting or anything, but a DTCC. Imagine how much that pumped. It caused us to pump 30% all the way up to 35. Imagine how much we could fall, I mean, pump, sorry, if the ETF actually gets accepted. And there are more than, I believe there's like 10 ETFs that are all actively trying to get accepted. And if one gets accepted, all of them will get accepted at the same time, which is why I strongly believe that once the ETFs get accepted, Bitcoin's gonna pump like hell. It's gonna pump very, very fast to the upside. But until then, the bears could be technically correct also. We could be seeing very high risk areas because if we go back in time and we look at this previous rally, during this last year and a half, this high risk area, we had something very interesting. We saw pumps up 300% rallies and then falls down and then rises up and then falls down, causing false hope both to the upside and to the downside, both for bulls and for bears, which is why a lot of people started to hold and a lot of people got liquidated both ways. Honestly, this is the worst year to be in. It's the best if you're thinking about super long term. If you're thinking about the next halving that's happening in 3 years, who cares what Bitcoin's going to do? Who cares if Bitcoin's going to fall 70%? You can just buy more down here. But for those people who are trying to make money off of this, thinking this was going to be a pump right now, they lost money and sold right here, which is why a lot of people believe that this pre halving rally could end for Bitcoin very, very soon. There's a pre-halving rally that Bitcoin does every single cycle and then has a crash. We had a pre-halving rally over here to 13,000 before falling down to 6,000 before starting to rise, and we rose up to $10,000 again, which, speaking of which, was a 62% pump. That's a very big pump. But after that, we had a crash down. Even though this was a pandemic, even though this was a black swan event, and technically Bitcoin could rise up technically to all-time highs from here, this could have been the start. Even though this could have been the start, we did have a crash down, which means that a lot of people got wrecked because this was a high risk area. If we go back in time to more areas, we saw crashes like this that happened frequently. We saw having rallies. This was a very big rally. This was 163% that happened in 91 days. And after that, we had a dump down, which was actually 41%. Going back to this right over here, we can see another thing. We had a rally like this after reaching $30 in the first year of the cycle. We fell down and then had a very volatile area where a lot of people would get wrecked. Of course, the bigger Bitcoin got, the more volatile it looked in terms of price movement, but percentages got smaller. What I'm saying is that we could be seeing something very insane happen very, very soon, and it's not priced in yet. If I look at the crypto fear and greed index, we do have a little bit of fear, but it slowly went down. And that is because if you go on the short term time frame, if you go on, for example, the hourly or something, we do see a slowdown in this pump. The hype is basically almost gone. The hype is slowing down. People do not know what's about to happen because all the hype is gone. We had no news after this in October 2023. We had no news after that. And so we are entering a rising channel. And people are starting to wonder if this could be bearish because rising channels are generally bearish like this, which means that we technically could see a pullback down, which is why a lot of people believe that right now in the short term, Bitcoin is bearish. And there are indicators proving this. For example, Bitcoin is super far away from all its moving averages on the daily time frame, and its RSI is very, very high, which means that technically we are oversold. I mean, overbought. We should technically have a correction using technical analysis, which is why a lot of bearish people think that Bitcoin could fall down to $31,000 again and confirm support at these levels. For example, on the weekly time frame, all the moving averages are down here at $29,000. They are yet to catch up for Bitcoin. And that means that technically a dump down could happen and they are praying for it. But what I'm saying is that news, real life news, always is higher than technical analysis because technical analysis is split into many different levels. Technical analysis is more like psychological analysis. You're trying to figure out the fear, the supply and demand, what's happening, trying to understand psychology. All these trend lines that you draw, all these indicators are psychological levels, and there are different ranges. So the lowest one, in my opinion, is technical analysis itself, support lines and stuff like that. It's very basic levels where people just automatically sell or buy because Bitcoin is rising or falling. And you get to see patterns. But a very high level of technical analysis, of this sophisticated analysis, is actually looking at real life news. And that is always a better alternative than technical analysis. Because even though you could see some kind of rising channel like we see right now, This could take us down to $31,000. But at the same time, imagine the ETF gets accepted tomorrow. What's going to happen? A rise to $40,000 will happen like this. It's going to happen instantly. And that's why I'm saying that right now, in the next couple months, this is going to be insane, depending on what's going to happen. January 10th is the deadline for the ETFs, which means that we need to get Bitcoin's going to pump by January 10th, 2024. And that's why technically both the Bears and the Bulls are correct. They have facts speaking on both sides, but the Bulls have an advantage. They have real life catalysts and real life news, which is why personally I am pretty bullish on Bitcoin. Even though we do have this short-term halving rally that could result in Bitcoin falling down, it all depends on the Bitcoin news, specifically Bitcoin ETF. And not just that, but more news, which is why I will be covering this news each and every day to tell you guys what's going to happen in the future. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this short little live stream. I'm changing a lot of things on my channel, and there will be a lot of changing coming soon, but I'll tell you about that in later videos. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. This is very, very important. I do daily live streams. I need your subscription. It's free. You can always change it back later. I'll see you in the next live stream.